There are moments when we feel something subtle, almost imperceptible, trying to break through the veil of our attention. A sensation, a restlessness, an impulse that makes us pause and ask, is this just my imagination, or is there something more here with me? It is as if the universe whispers through the cracks of our routine, trying to call us into a dialogue we do not yet know how to hear. This silent ache is familiar to many. It is the discomfort of realizing that something wants to be noticed, something that does not fit into rational explanations, something that challenges us to question whether it is intuition, coincidence, or just the mind seeking meaning in every detail of life. Gregg Braden reminds us that the universe is not just empty space. It is a living, sensitive, interactive web. Every emotion we feel, every choice we make vibrates within this network, producing waves that reverberate silently, as if the entire universe were a living organism responding to our frequency. Joe Dispenza adds that many of these messages are lost not because the universe stops speaking, but because our brains are programmed to filter signals through the lens of past experiences. Doubt, haste, silent skepticism, all of this acts as an invisible barrier that prevents us from perceiving the subtle language of life. Imagine an old radio, the kind that had to be carefully tuned, slowly turning the dial until the perfect station came in. Our mind and heart work in the same way. When we are misaligned, distracted, or restless, the signal from the universe arrives distorted, fragmented, almost unrecognizable. But when we tune in, when we quiet ourselves and make space, something changes. A moment of clarity arises, a moment when we realize that what once seemed like coincidence is, in fact, a silent dialogue, patiently waiting for us to learn how to listen. And what if everything you call coincidence was actually a conversation you have not yet learned to hear? What if every sign, every unexpected encounter, every symbolic repetition carried a message carefully placed before you, but hidden in the rhythm of life, in the cadence of your own attention? This is the journey we propose: to learn to perceive the invisible, to recognize the subtle, to open yourself to what exists beyond immediate sight, but that deeply touches who you are. There are signs that repeat themselves, discreet, insistent, as if trying to capture your attention without you realizing it at first. Maybe it's a number that appears several times, a phrase that shows up in books or conversations, or a detail that returns in dreams. At first they go unnoticed, mistaken for coincidence, ignored as small curiosities. But when we begin to notice, a different feeling emerges, a kind of vibration that cannot be explained only by chance. Gregg Braden shows us that these recurring patterns are much more than appearances. They function as markers, small points of light indicating that you are touching a frequency of imminent change. Each repetition carries its own energy, a subtle message that intertwines with your emotions and decisions. It is not something that happens by chance. It is the universe communicating in the language you are still learning. The mind, however, tends to seek immediate meaning, and it is easy to interpret every sign as prophecy or confirmation. But emotional coherence is what differentiates a fleeting echo from a true signal. It is like hearing a melody in the wind. Only when you stop, breathe, and listen does the sound reveal itself fully. Mentally noting these repetitions, observing the context in which they arise, and noticing the feelings they awaken is the path to recognizing that something greater is trying to show itself. Over days, you may begin to notice a dance of symbols that do not appear by accident. And in this silent recognition, something within you begins to change. A more attentive gaze, a more receptive heart, a calmer mind. The invisible finds space to manifest, and the world around you begins to reveal signs that were once ignored, as if the universe itself were gently pointing the way. Some events seem small, fleeting, almost imperceptible, but they leave an invisible mark inside you. An unexpected meeting, a conversation that arises at the right moment, a coincidence that seems to cross time just for you. The difference between coincidence and synchronicity is not in the appearance of the event, but in the silent transformation it provokes within you. A single instant changes your perception, reorganizes the way you feel, and suddenly, the world is no longer the same. Gregg Braden describes these experiences as micro-portals, moments when the mind and the unified field temporarily align. In that alignment, a sense of clarity arises, a thread of understanding that connects you to something greater, something that cannot be explained with logic, but is felt with the heart. It is as if the universe, for a moment, whispered in harmony with your soul, offering answers that could not arise otherwise. Yet the mind often seeks proof, signs that fit exactly into expectations, and thus true synchronicity passes unnoticed. The power of that moment is not in the event itself, but in the change it brings to your inner state. It is feeling the world in a new way, perceiving the movement of life without needing to name or control it. When you recognize these synchronicities, something changes within. A space of presence opens, time feels deeper, and the silent dialogue between you and the universe becomes more tangible. Life begins to reveal layers that were once hidden, showing that many times, what seemed random is actually carefully placed to awaken attention, presence, and sensitivity. There are moments when the universe does not communicate through images, numbers, or explicit signs. Sometimes the message arrives in the space between thoughts, in the silence that fills the heart and mind. It is a light weight, a deep emptiness that brings clarity, as if anxiety or confusion dissolved without explanation. In that silence, something reveals itself, not with words, but with the feeling of being whole, of perceiving the world differently, more open, more attentive. Gregg Braden describes that states of heart coherence make this subtle contact easier. When the heart and mind find harmony, the unified field responds more clearly, and the answers that once seemed invisible begin to emerge naturally. It is not effort nor logic, it is alignment, a frequency that allows you to perceive what was always present, but hidden under the noise of routine and constant thought. The change does not come from outside, but from within. A single moment of conscious breathing, a moment in which you simply allow yourself to feel, is enough for the mind to quiet and the universe to speak through silence. It is in this space that subtle answers arise, delicate, as if they were whispers of life itself, offering direction and understanding without needing to explain. In silence, everything becomes clearer. Life seems to organize itself, thoughts find rhythm, and a deep sense of trust settles in. The invisible becomes felt, and understanding arises not as a logical conclusion, but as an experience that passes through body, mind, and heart at once. Sometimes we cling to forms, models, expectations. We imagine that the universe must respond in a specific way, with clear, obvious, perfectly organized signs. But the intelligence of the field does not follow our linear logic. It responds to the state we vibrate, to the quality of the attention we offer, not to the rigid form we desire. When we insist on receiving exactly as we expect, we may miss what arrives unexpectedly, subtly, but profoundly transforming. There are stories of people who sought answers in dreams, interpreting every detail as prophecy, but discovered that the real message came in a spontaneous gesture from a stranger, in an unexpected word, or in an unplanned event. Life speaks many languages, and each one requires openness, presence, and sensitivity. The sign does not bend to desire. It manifests in the frequency we are able to offer, in the space we leave to listen without distortion. When we release the need for form and connect with the feeling we seek, peace, clarity, understanding, communication becomes more fluid. A gesture, a coincidence, a sudden sensation may carry the answer we were searching for. The universe does not fail. It is we who sometimes cannot hear beyond the format we imagined. This perception brings a deep stillness, as if life were inviting us to dance in tune with its own cadence without needing to control each step. When the heart is open and the mind attentive, even the unexpected reveals meaning, and every moment becomes an opportunity for silent dialogue with the reality around us. There is a silent impulse that often prevents us from seeing clearly. It is the inner haste, the desire to decode immediately, to obtain instant answers, as if time could be rushed. But the coherence of the field is delicate. It does not reveal itself under pressure. The more we try to force, the more distorted the signal becomes, and what was subtle and clear turns into confusion or frustration. Gregg Braden reminds us that the universe responds more to the frequency we emit than to what we ask. The intensity of anxiety, rigid expectation, silent impatience, all of this alters vibration and obscures perception. It is like looking at a restless lake, trying to see the reflection of the sky. The surface moves, the mirror fragments, and the image we seek never appears clearly. When we replace the question, when will the answer come, with attention to our own tuning, something changes. The heart calms, the mind opens, and perception sharpens. The haste dissolves, and the space needed for the answer to emerge appears naturally. It is in this state of receptive stillness that the invisible becomes perceptible, that life shows itself more clearly and harmoniously, and that the universe's silent communication becomes intelligible, effortlessly, without pressure, simply present. Patience in this sense is not passive waiting but active alignment. It is allowing the inner frequency to adjust, the heart to find rhythm, the mind to breathe, and then realizing that the answers were never distant. They were only waiting for the right moment to be recognized. Communicating with the universe is not a magical act, nor something that happens by chance. It is a skill that develops with attention, observation, and presence. Gregg Braden reminds us that every gesture, every emotion, and every choice creates waves in the unified field, and that by perceiving these waves, we enter into silent dialogue with life. It is an invitation to feel, to recognize, to be attentive to the details that often go unnoticed. Dispenza adds that every time we notice and honor a sign, we strengthen internal connections, making our brain more sensitive and more receptive to other signs. Constant practice transforms perception, the invisible becomes felt, and life reveals layers that once remained hidden. It is not about collecting signs, but about adjusting the inner state, cultivating a presence that allows reality to speak in its own rhythm, in its own language. Learning to understand the universe is like learning a new language. It requires daily practice, attention to detail, patience, and willingness to listen more than to speak. It is realizing that every moment carries meaning, that every repetition, every synchronicity, every silence is a phrase in this silent language that connects us to the whole. The more attuned we become, the more life reveals itself, the more the dialogue intensifies, and the more we realize that everything we seek is already present, waiting only for us to listen attentively, with an open heart and an awakened mind. The miracle of prayer, when seen from this perspective, ceases to be a distant or mysterious phenomenon. It becomes a natural process, a dance between our attention, our emotions, and the field that surrounds us. And in this silent dialogue, we learn that the true miracle is not receiving ready-made answers, but transforming our own perception, opening space for the invisible, and discovering that the universe has always been speaking to us, patiently waiting for us to learn how to listen.